But anyway, I'm Steve. I run a career coaching and outplacement company called Executive Connections. We're based in the UK, but we work with clients all over the world. Been doing so for over 10 years now. Primarily senior level executives. That's our kind of niche, if you like. It means that our own networks are oriented in that way, and the kind of the knowledge that we offload, during coaching sessions is oriented in that way as well. So this series is just a weekly series of events. And what we do is pick on different subjects. We've covered things like CVs and hidden jobs market and job interviews and staying resilient in a job search and so on. There's recordings of all those sessions available, just on request, basically. My colleague Dorcas, you'll see, is on the call as well, and if you've got sort of messages you can send, or you want to book a chat with me or anything like that, there should be links anyway, but you're welcome to pop any other questions into the general chat as well. So okay, yeah, just to show you a couple images of people that we work with. So I mentioned about senior level execs. I think it's there's many hundreds of people we've worked with, obviously, in the past 10 plus years, but many people that come to us are in a bit of a sticky situation. Some are seeing I see one person here who, sees the writing on the wall in their organization. So they're just sort of starting to look around. What they will do essentially is work with one of my team for 3 months, 6 months, something of that order typically. Working towards landing their next role. So I think there's enough said on that slide, really. A strong network is crucial. I think we know that. But in terms of a bit of detail behind that, I think that what happens is when many people are in the job search mode, it can get a bit desperate, for lots of different reasons, obviously. But having that long-term thinking can be quite difficult. But I would reiterate, I've said this before many times, about the adding value to others there. When you have a meeting, a networking meeting with anybody, just make sure that you're giving something back to that meeting, even if you're kind of really, feel like you're in the thick of it in the job search, your kind of resilience is not as good, you're not feeling confident. Try and bring something to that meeting anyway, and it will always, it will always help. Some people just don't like networking. I think I talk a bit about face-to-face networking, which still exists, doesn't it? But later on, but people don't like doing that. And oftentimes, if you ask questions of somebody and are genuinely interested in that person, it will just help. It helps to break the ice. I don't mean firing one question after the other, but if you're orienting in that way, you're learning more about the person, and it can really, really be helpful. I think most of the other things there are fairly straightforward. I mean, mentoring is something that people don't think about. We provide coaching. Some people would view us as a mentor as well, but I view a mentor as more if you are, a group FD looking to get to a CFO post or something. Are you having one or two mentors who are already at that level? That's fairly straightforward, I think. And I talked about being authentic. That's really, 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 really important. Just sort of make sure that you are really, engaging in conversations, that you're not just there to sort of grab a couple of phone numbers or emails off of that individual. This is the mindset that you need to be in, because whilst many people we work with, we work with people on a timeline of life, and it's that little piece where someone's really, really struggling to find a new role. That's when we engage with that person, so, we have to try and help somebody to be the best they can be. And I think that this is what this is all about. It's about you putting that hat on when you're in those networking situations and just making sure that you keep things going. When it talks about keeping relationships warm, you can have put it in your diary. Yes, I know, but you can put a CRM, you can have a spreadsheet, do whichever way you like. And I would also say, keep in touch following, because the objective with all this is getting your next and best role. That's the objective primarily, isn't it, with any job search? So what then happens afterwards is that people can just drop all these activities, and I would just suggest that you earmark, even if it's only an hour a week, into a new role, and just keep it going, keep the relationships going, keep the networking going. I talked about the face-to-face elements. I know you'll have kind of your own specific industry events that you will attend. And with that, I don't know if you do this or not, but I've written on the first point there, business card. Some people we've worked with will create their own personal business card. So it might have LinkedIn ID, or it might have a code on the back that you can just go through and look at all of your details. Some people use these websites which have all your social information on them, and just one sort of flash of an image will take you there. But essentially, you could have photograph, name, LinkedIn address, exchange business cards rather. That's still worthwhile, and it can still work. So have a think about whether that's going to work for you, and whether you're going to attend enough face-to-face sessions to make use of that. Just touching on the elevator pitch in the middle there, where clear and concise is one thing, but compelling is what it's got to be. So just sort of practice it. Either practice it in the mirror, practice it. You can launch a Zoom call yourself, for example, and just record it and play it back at the end as you are doing your elevator pitch. And just try and keep eye contact with the camera, and kind of pretend that you are in that situation. A bit of practice does help. I know it's important to speak from the heart, really, really important when you're in these situations. But if you've got something that you have practiced, and it's not just going to be the first time that you're stumbling over the words, it really can help. And obviously following up is important, very, very important. And it's just treat it as a physical version of being on LinkedIn, which is where most of us spend most of our time nowadays, I'm sure. So optimizing your profile is a slightly separate subject in a way, but it does impact on networking, and making sure that you've got your photograph is up to date. Is it, do you look the same? Believe me, I've seen photos that don't look like the person I'm speaking to on a call. So just try and ensure your photo is relatively up to date anyway. And make sure you're showcasing all of your experience in your about section on LinkedIn. By the way, many people miss putting in marketing terms, it's called a call to action. So in other words, I'd love to engage, or I'd love to connect with you. Here's my phone number, here's my email address, whatever you feel comfortable, and is your way of doing that. But something that finishes off that about section. It's not just a list of bullet points. Great to have those achievements in there as well, but have something at the end. So I don't know if any of you do publishing at the moment. So it could be actual articles, it could be long form posts, because as you probably realize, you can get a lot of information on a normal LinkedIn post these days. But certainly I wouldn't dabble with it. I would commit to doing it twice a week. That will lead to networking opportunities. But don't expect to get sort of instantaneous results doing that. It can take a few weeks to get momentum, to get enough people. Depends on your connection numbers as well, and your existing network. But it's another legitimate job search strategy for those of you who are not doing that at the moment. I know you'll all be within professional associations, but how much are you engaging in them? Are you attending all the sort of webinars they provide, and are you keeping in touch with your alumni of where you studied and things of that nature as well? It can all count. But I would reiterate a point I made a few slides back about keeping it going. I know it's very important. You want to gather things around you in a job search phase and make it count for the next job. But to avoid being in a situation where you feel your network is lacking at any point in the future, is just keep those things going. It could be quarterly check-ins with people once you're in a role. I'm talking about now. Quarterly check-ins, for example. So that's something I think would work, and it shouldn't be too onerous a task. I talk a lot about the hidden jobs market, but obviously, you've got your top 10 executive search firms, and I think it's up to every individual to sort of find which ones work for them. I haven't got any particular favorites, but the top 10 are the top 10, aren't they, in terms of executive search anyway? And they can be helpful. I think that many people will see it as quite transactional with a recruiter, no matter at what level. They're interested in you as a candidate. I mean, they're working primarily for their client. That's the relationship. But I think it's still worth it because you will find a few nuggets and you will find a few good connections that will be worth having, that will be offering you a decent conversation, a more sort of rounded conversation. There's a lot of stuff out there about advertised or unadvertised, beg pardon, unadvertised jobs, and that is a case. Just see this whole networking piece as linking into the hidden jobs market and the unadvertised piece and unlocking what's not there in front of everyone's radar. Not saying to exclude search firms at all in any way, but don't ignore the networking piece either. If you're in a company already, obviously it's a slightly different thing. If you're in a company at the moment, then what sort of relationship building are you doing in that organization? That's sort of a slightly different subject, I guess, in a way, but it's worth talking about in terms of your own attitudes about networking. People often talk about internal, external stakeholders and all of that, and it's really important to just build on that. You've often got to negotiate in the workplace, and I think that's really important experience to then take out when you find yourself in that job search scenario. So it's important in either context, really, internally or during the job search. It does take time and effort building a network. That's why most people don't bother to do it properly, because there is that kind of urgency about landing the next role, which kind of unfortunately feeds into strategies which just come over as being too pushy, too needy, too salesy, and all of those negative things. It's important just to, in whatever way you do it, practicing mindfulness, meditation, going out for a walk, whatever it is, that you remain strong in resilience all the way through. With the relationships themselves, I've had feedback from people that have been introduced via our networks, and they would say, oh yes, well, he was just sort of, all he wanted was getting phone numbers and email addresses off me. He didn't really bring anything to the table. Not exactly those words, but it's the spirit of what I'm trying to get across here. So put it on an even keel. If you have a networking conversation with a new connection, because we make plenty of introductions for people. If you have organizations and you're a client of ours and you have organizations that you want to try and network into, we will do the research and see whether we're connected to anybody. And it's in those circumstances as well that it's important to bring something to the table, see it as a meeting of minds. Yes, they will know you're in the market, obviously, but it's just sort of keeping that cool approach, I think, really. So yeah, I hope that helps anyway, just in terms of, it's more about mindset than anything else. I guess that many people would know that the tactics involved, it's just about mindset and regularity. Are you doing it regularly? So that's networking. Next week, going down the rabbit hole of setbacks, really. Again, we see this a lot with our clients. There can be good days, bad days, good weeks, bad weeks. Setting up for an interview, feeling it went well, and then receiving a no, and then on to the next opportunity. So how to bounce back from setbacks and things of that nature, and just keeping that resilience strong that I've already alluded to, really. So again, because many people view the recordings, these links will be in the chat, and many of you will know this already, but I'm always available for a one-to-one if you're considering engaging with services like ourselves. The other link is really because we also get viewed by a lot of HR people, and in the unfortunate situation of people being made redundant, I'd invite you to use a different link, and that's there on the page as well. So, okay, I will stop sharing any second now, but just to make the point that I've talked about networking, I've also touched on lots of different subjects, and I think that's important for you to have the opportunity to get into a discussion or just ask questions. If you don't want to do it, on camera, that's fine. You can put it into the chat and I'll try and sort of field it that way. But any subject is fine, despite the fact that we have been covering networking. So, okay. There we are. That should be back into the room now. So, okay, guys. Let's have a look, see if there's, so the links are in the chat. Excellent. Yep, okay.
Steve, are there some sort of general organizations you can join to network? So I'm an accountant, chartered accountant. I can go along to all the great chartered account events, which I do, but most of them tend to be very much more on themes, and there's very little about opportunities or individual opportunities. Are there some more sort of generic organizations, CBI or people like that you'd recommend joining? Or?
Yeah, I haven't got any recommendations on that front actually, but I'll certainly do some digging into it, Ian. I think I was just thinking as you said that then about there are networking groups that spring to mind that are more about business to business networking, probably.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think
Or
that's
sales. Yes.
yeah, and that's the trouble with that kind of thing. You don't want to be in something where everyone is just trying to sell to everybody else, essentially. But I'll certainly go away and do some digging and come back to you on that front for sure. And if anyone else has got any ideas, you're welcome to pitch in.
Yeah, Ian, in terms of a response to your question there, one of the things I've done, and I need to do more of it, but over the last couple of months, I've been to a few trade shows down at the Excel Centre. So look up if I don't know where you're based, but I'm based just outside London, so it's relatively easy for me to jump into town. These were accounting. One of them was Accountex, which is specifically for accountants. I'm a chartered accountant as well, and so that was good. So have a look at searching wherever you live, your local sort of large spaces that might be running trade shows or similar, because they might be worth attending as well. And of course, the diary's set out for the rest of the year, so you can really plan your diary quite well. And I think to follow on from that, and Steve, what I was going to say is, I think, first of all, thank you for the session. I think I feel always much more positive and buoyant when I've had that face-to-face meeting rather than just a Teams call or a chat over the telephone. So trying to make sure you carve that time out to go and meet people, I think can be really important. And the feedback you get from the recruiter is often much more positive as well, because they don't often see people face to face, so they remember you. I think, and that can go a long way as well. So trying to carve the time out to go and have those face-to-face meetings.
Thank you.
It's very true. We've all got used to being behind the camera, and whilst being sort of good on camera is a skill that's necessary nowadays because of so many interviews happen in that way. I couldn't agree with you more, Mark. I mean, even had some feedback recently that they like it when people pick the phone up, which is a little bit of irony there, because I also get a lot of complaints that recruiters don't call people back all the time. But yeah, so the feedback was that they do like it when people pick the phone up, and I think it's just remembering that we can do that as well. It's kind of in addition to the actual face-to-face piece that you're talking about. But that's great. Thank you for providing that feedback for Ian. And look, we're putting the networking into action, aren't we? That's all I can say here, essentially.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, very good. So, Steve, I was very interested. I think you did a session on the hidden jobs market. I've made a note of that. Was there anything sort of high level that you could share about what the message is on that session? I will go and look for it, but I just wondered if you could whet my appetite on that one.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I suppose, first of all, it's the concept. Some people find the actual concept hard to take on board, because it's sort of, well, how do you access all of this? And if I'm dealing with, doesn't have to be just you might not describe yourself as a numbers person, but you get what I'm trying to say there. Hard facts, black and white stuff. It's hard to then think, okay, there is a way of accessing roles which might not be advertised by having to really get across more people's radar. So the activities, more connecting, publishing, articles, expressing your thought leadership, because LinkedIn's become such a monster these days. It's obviously where I'm talking about when I'm referring to that kind of stuff. But some people will have their own sort of website portal and things like that as well, just because they prefer and they want to sort of post bits and pieces there as well. But I think that that's the kind of round robin, if you like. There's certainly it's engaging with the right people, having those networking conversations, and getting across more people's radar. That's the bit that people probably find the hardest.
Yeah.
Because there is no kind of, it's like, how long is a piece of string? How long is this going to take to get results? So if someone says, right, in order to access the hidden jobs market, I need to post and be more active on LinkedIn so more people will see me. right, I get that bit. How long is that going to take? And that's the how long is a piece of string piece.
Yeah.
I would just say if anyone isn't doing that, then, you know, start posting a couple of times a week, start getting involved in the hashtags that you can search on LinkedIn that are relevant to your industry or subject areas of interest to you.
Yeah.
And just really dig under the bonnet or the hood, depending on where you're watching from, of that kind of subject. So it can just seem a bit foggy, I suppose, Mark, is what I'm saying for some people.
No, that's great. That's really helpful, Steve. Thank you. Yeah.
But I think sometimes to assist with that, you know, that's where we get in and we'll look at our networks as well. And if someone says, oh, I've always wanted to, you know, there's a couple of companies I really like the look of, but they're not advertising at the moment. I want to try and network my way into them. Do you happen to know anyone, etc., etc.? And we'll look at our networks, and if we can make an introduction, networking introduction, then we'll do that as well. So there's other ways of trying to nudge doors open, but I think that upping activity has got to be the bottom line to it, really. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
It's funny, it reflects on a question that someone asked from another channel actually about using platforms for thought leadership, which does sort of relate to the question, really. So, and some people again would don't like the phrase personal branding, don't like the phrase thought leadership, and don't want to get into all of that stuff, you know. But to me, the why is always just in order to get across more people's radar, essentially, because it's such a massive marketplace that you've got to find different ways of doing things. And if you're doing that, despite how much of a slog it can seem sometimes, you'll be doing things that most other people are just not doing at all, you know. And ironically, it can be harder for some people than others, you know. But I would say that anything, even like an interview, is going to be, it's a sales meeting to a certain extent. So it's just in your true self, promoting yourself as much as you feel comfortable doing. There's a different nuance there as well if someone's working or not working, obviously, you know, in terms of how much you can do and how much you want to be seen to be doing, etc. But yeah, certainly I would say, you know, engage in it. We've got the recording for sure, and get that to you. And there's a white paper that kind of, you know, is similar in many ways as well. But certainly, yeah, I'm happy to have a chat to you about it on a kind of
I've got the link, so I'll drop that in the diary for next week. I think that would be
great. No worries. All right, that's fine, no problem. That's fine.
Thank you.
No worries. So I see, I don't want to pick on you, but if you've got any questions, pop them into the chat at this point, if you like. We've still got a bit of time, but
I think for me, I'm quite happy to have joined this morning. Steve, this is my second session with you. So I think I joined the session about a month ago. I've not been able to since then, so thank you. But
no problem.
They're very valuable. They're well delivered, and the content is nicely pitched. So thank you very much.
No, I appreciate that. Okay, well, I think that's a great way to finish. I couldn't finish any better than that. So I think that I appreciate it. If you have questions you want to discuss on a one-to-one, I've said it already, but I'm always there on any, you know, formally or informally, either way is fine. So I'll send all the info that you guys need, hopefully that will help you going forward. And I look forward to seeing you on future calls as well.
See you next time, Steve. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Isaiah. Thanks, Dorcas.
Have a great day. Thanks, Mark.
Cheers all. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.